All the Light We Cannot See, Season 1, Episode 3. Or Season Everything, Episode 3. It's a limited series. There's only one season. Yeah, so this is still on Netflix and still has audio description, and which is great. And we've had lots of talks and conversations about this, and I think it's amazing. Sean Levy is actually showing up at the American Council of Blind's awards and excellence in audio description this year. I don't know what the actual name of the award ceremony is, but there is one. There's something having to do with that, and he's got some, shout out, special thank you to those, obviously, because he's opened up his eyes. I think it's great that Sean Levy is aware of things like this, because he will go on to continue to make movies. I stand by what I said in my first review, first episode. I don't think he was the right person for the series, and I think the series is suffering from that. There's nothing in his resume to suggest that that he is the person that should have been helming this project, but he is. So we're here now, and we're in the third episode, and Marie, whence last we left Marie, out of Werner's backstory episode, it seemed like people were going to be storming the castle on Marie, and everything was going to be over, and just it's a depressing end. But no. The over the top. I love that they have to contrast here in this, because one of the biggest things that I've had a problem with is having I don't know how to have a conversation. I don't even know what this is doing to my channel. Every time I acknowledge what Werner is, and I have to use the N-word, not that N-word, to describe him. I don't know if the algorithms are picking it up and they're like, danger, we've got a problem. This person's using this word on his channel. It couldn't possibly be for any of the legitimate reasons. I don't know how else to describe him. I was saying, I joked around last time about using the word hobbit to see whether or not my videos would not get, shoved out of the public eye. I want my videos to continue. I want people to still see me. So I feel like that's got to be a word that is tracked in the algorithm. So Werner and his we'll go with mermaid Werner. He's a mermaid this week. Well, the other mermaid with him was amplified into extreme assholery, so that we can start to kind of like Werner. We're supposed to. They realize this is an uphill battle, so Werner has to kind of be who he is, and then every other mermaid like him that's around him has to be even more of a terrible human being than him, like aggressively so, to the point where you're just can the ceiling just come down on this guy? I mean, I don't care. I wouldn't care if in some of these scenes, if a velociraptor just jumped out of nowhere and just tackled some of these people. I'd just be like, oh, it's not appropriate for the time period, but thank God we got rid of that guy. I'm glad. Get that guy off my screen. There's no sympathy on some of these characters. You're never like, oh man, what about that guy? He's probably had a wife and kids. And they're like, no, they're better off. I haven't even met them, and I just immediately assume better off. So, and we've still got the guy wandering around looking for the rock. And not that kind of rock either, or that kind of rock. If I said The Rock and you immediately thought of either Dwayne Johnson or Alcatraz, I didn't mean either one of those. I meant the ridiculous stone that is for some reason in this series. As if this series didn't have enough going on, there's also this stone that must be obtained. What was this book about? I'm having a really hard time. I really came here for representation. I'm like, oh, this has a blind lead played by a blind actress that won a national casting call. Oh, I have to comment on this. And now that I'm watching it, I'm like, what is happening? What is this? What is happening with this show? So, anyway, Werner meets Hugh Laurie, Dr. House, comes in, and they dispose of the other mermaid, and they get rid of him. He's gone, and they tell, Dr. House tells Marie that she's fine and to just go about her daily business, and so everything's okay. Nothing weird's happening. Just keep doing your thing. You do you, girl. And meanwhile, he takes Werner and decides to do his own level of investigation / interrogation. And, he's like, take off that jacket, And unfortunately, that scene didn't get sexy. It just was, he doesn't like jackets with, like, mermaid logos on them. So, really liking this direction I've chosen to go on this recap. So we had to get rid of the jacket, and then Werner has to go answer for his crimes, which he's pretty honest about. He's like, listen, I've done some terrible things, but he also kind of realizes and starts talking about, the radio frequency and everything. And then that is why in the third episode, Hugh Laurie is so heavily featured, and we go into flashbacks, and we get two huge pieces of information. One is that Mark Ruffalo is Parisian. So he is trying to do a Parisian accent. So that answers the question of what is Mark Ruffalo doing? I've had that question since the beginning of the show. I had no idea what this accent was, what country he was coming from. But he's Parisian, and apparently that's what they used to sound like, I guess. Or what Mark Ruffalo thinks they used to sound like. His interpretation of that. This is what happens when you hire people to play people of another country who are not from that country, who don't have any heritage in that country, who can't do an accent from that country. So, and Hugh Laurie is the professor. Spoiler alert. We find out he's been sitting. He has a radio broadcast, and he sits in this sort of like dark room and locked off from society. And when Ruffalo and Marie come to visit, they I guess Laurie is her uncle. That's what I surmise out of this whole thing. She kind of opens him up a little bit more to the world, and they go and they get oysters and all this kind of good stuff, and it's very light and sort of reflective on the past, and we learn a little bit more about them and about Ruffalo. People have heard about him, and apparently him walking around the town building that model that he built for Marie raised some alarms. People reported into the Nazis as perhaps trying to help the Americans, and he had to explain that he had a daughter. And of course the mermaids that show up, they do things to test her blindness by holding a knife in front of her eye, and she's just not stressed about it at all. She doesn't react. So anyway, so they can tell that she's actually doesn't see anything, and that maybe his story is legit. But he still has to get out of Dodge because he had to get fake papers. And people are looking for him. So, so he has to go run away, and then they hide Marie like she doesn't exist, and that's how we got to where we are. And then Hugh Laurie has some people who have been working in his back channels that show up, and they want to kill Werner because he's killed people and he's been responsible for the deaths of others. And Werner's actually not. He's not terribly like begging to not be killed. He's pretty much like, yeah, I have done some terrible stuff, so that's valid. Your opinions are valid, but Laurie sees something in him that is worth keeping around and is trying to beg his people to not go through with it. And then it sounds like the Americans are coming, and a fourth episode is upon us. And that guy's still wandering around looking for a rock. And it seems like he knows where Marie is. So once again, we're left with an episode where it looks like somebody has found Marie, and we don't know if they've really found Marie or if they found like someone else or somewhere else or anything like that. So yes, that is all the light we cannot see. Audio description still fine. We're not giving Marie a whole hell of a lot to do here. It's a weird series, a lot weirder than I thought it was going to be, but I'm engaged enough in the weirdness. I think I thought it was going to be a much more straightforward drama, but it's not, which is okay. You know, we can use a little bit of quirkiness. And I think that's probably what makes Shawn Levy useful here, is the fact that it's not so straightforward. Because if this was more straightforward and just like dark and depressing, it would be even harder for him to direct. But luckily there's some levity in the fact that there's this superstitious rock that everybody seems to want to look for. And I mean, he did Night in Museum films, so that qualifies him, obviously. Good choice. Anyway, I'm going to give All the Light We Cannot See Season 1, Episode 3, B+. Mainly because Hugh Laurie is just a great actor, and we got way more screen time with him, so excited about that. So anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll be back with the next episode next week. Until then, see you guys on the other side.